Hello there, me again. I feel silly starting these. It makes me, feel a bit silly because you're sat on your own in a room with a computer and then you're looking at it and saying hello and then talking to it. That takes me a couple of minutes to sort of bed into it before I feel it feels natural. Um, Thanks again for all your mails and stuff, and it's been brilliant connecting with people. And I'm going to start doing videos about the process of what happens when you go in, and I've got questions that people have asked me which I will address. But I'm going to talk today about what's been happening to me in the last few days. It's like the last 10 days have been mad, and I feel that it'd be good to share it now while it's fresh, because I don't want to leave it and then it drifts sort of into the background, because things do, they kind of lose their essence a little bit, because as you move along they don't stay as crisp in your mind. I'm just checking that I am recording this. I've already done this once and I didn't push record, and so I got to the end, went to push stop, and actually pushed record. So I'll start again. So what I'm going to do is start off where I left off last time, where I was when I last made the video, with the realisation of the game of life that we play, that God plays with himself. And when I made the last video, that had only sort of happened in the last few days, and so it's had some bedding in time, and which has been interesting actually. And I have felt very, very powerful, which is something that I never felt before. I always felt weak and vulnerable, and that I didn't actually have the ability to protect myself, or to really have a voice, or feel that I deserve to have a voice, I suppose. But since I've looked at all that, and it's now bedded into me, and I've accepted that it's all there and I don't have to push it away anymore, I have felt really powerful, because it's that realising that the thing that I was most frightened of was my inner maniac, that was going to come out at some point and was going to overpower me and maybe make me do things that I didn't want to do. But I've now realised that actually it has no ability whatsoever to come out in you unless it's needed. It feels now like all of my parts are all there. I've got all of them. I've got fear and anger and pain and my maniac, but they're all kind of sleeping because they don't need to be activated, because the chemicals that would normally activate them, the fight or flight, I can't ever say that right, chemicals, they're not being activated at all, and so they're just dormant, but I know they're there. And it's actually a really brilliant feeling knowing that they're there, because you know that if ever it came to a point where you needed your maniac, you've actually got one at hand. Like, say something happened and I ended up on the front line in a battle, unlikely, but you never know. And so imagine that I'm there on the front line and this other side is going to charge at me, and I've got a big pointy stick and I'm stood there waiting. Now, in that moment, there is one part of you that you would want to harness more than anything else. Loving compassion and all of those kind of emotions, they're not necessary at this point. What you need is your maniac. And if your maniac was it comes alive in you at that point, it would be welcome. And you realise that actually there is a place for all of it. You know, the other night I was sat downstairs and outside, and from next door's garden was this sort of loud screech sound. And it wasn't a sound I recognised. Like, it wasn't as if I heard it and I thought cat. I didn't know what it was. And I noticed that there was a whoosh of energy went through me. Because, rightfully so, because that part of me sensed that could be danger. It didn't know the sound. But what happened was, as soon as I realised what the sound was, it went away again. It didn't then materialise into, oh God, what's it to be frightened of? Because before, my mind would have then played out, what was that noise? I wonder what it is. And it would have played out all the different scenarios of what it could have been. And then I would have ended up being agitated just because I'd heard a sound. You know, and now, they can pop up, but they don't have to take you over. I had an experience yesterday where I was driving along. I was coming home from work, and I was driving along this coastal road, and it's really, really windy and hilly. And there's all the houses here have all just been built by people who've bought plots of land and built them, so there's no uniformity. So you'll go around a hill and there'll be a massive tall wall, and then next to it will be a little house sort of on the ground. It's sort of kind of strange. As I was driving around, I went around this bend. It was like a bend on a hill, quite sharp. As I went around it, I noticed a cat was sat on the top of this wall, but it was actually posed ready to come down the wall. And I clocked it and thought, oh, it's a cat. And then as I looked towards the road, there were 5 tiny kittens running in the road. They were running across the road towards my car, and I slammed on the brakes, but 2 of them went under my car. And oh God, I sat there, I was still, but I realised I was just on the side of a bend, and so if anyone came up the road, they would definitely have hit me as they came around the corner. And so I sat there for a few seconds, and I thought 2 of them definitely went under the car, and I've probably hit them. And I realised I couldn't stay where I was, and so I inched forward really, really, really slowly. I thought about getting out of the car. I looked out the window, so I couldn't see anything, and I inched forward, and there was nothing there. I hadn't hit them. They had gone over the road. And I drove home, and it hit me a couple of times. Oh my God, I nearly killed kittens. I mean, it actually made me laugh, because if you'd said to me the one thing that I'd hate the most, it would be killing kittens. I love kittens. Oh, they're very nice. And so I came home and I told Guy, I said, I just nearly hit some kittens and whatever, and that was that. And then later on, when I sat down in the evening, I thought about it, and I realised the difference between what happened then and what would have happened before was what happened, and it wasn't elaborated on in my mind. So before, I would have had played out every single scenario that could have happened. I would have seen dead kittens. There would have been every kind of dead kitten that you could ever see. There would have been mutilation, and there would have been nearly dead, not dead. I would have collected them up. I'd have to have taken to the vet. I wouldn't have been able to catch them. Someone would have banged into my car. It would have just kept on going, and it would have led to me going into a negative slide, because I realised as I was going through this and how my mind would have worked, that part said, you should have got out of the car. You could have just had one pinned down by its front paw, and you moved forward and you could have squashed it. And I thought, oh God, I didn't get out of the car. I'm evil. God, that's awful. But then I realised I was on a bend. My mind that took the situation as a whole knew that I couldn't get out of the car, knew I had to move, because I could have caused an awful accident. But I realised I would have forgotten about that bit where I could have been in the right, and it would have been that I was uncaring, unthinking. I didn't care about cats, it would have been a disaster, and that didn't happen. And that's the kind of thing that you realise stops. What's happening is happening. It happens, and then it stops. There's no mind stuff that runs along with it, because now the negative source, the energy isn't there. He can't fuel it, because I'm not listening, and he's just given up, really. He's just given up trying. And so it means that you have clarity, and situations can happen. I mean, if I had killed a kitten, I would have been very upset because I'd killed a kitten, but I wouldn't have had to have made myself into the bad guy, which I definitely would have done before. There's a mosquito here. There's mosquitoes everywhere here. So yeah, where was I? Oh yeah, the getting to grips with the realisation of the maniac and the Johnny Big Bollocks, the negative energy. That's what I've called him, because that's what he feels like to me. I feel it's a good idea to give it a name, actually, and a name that isn't kind of like devil or giving something that gives it weight, but give it a name that is humorous, because once you start looking at it from the side of reality, you realise that it doesn't actually have any weight. It doesn't have any substance at all really behind it. The only substance it has is that you're believing it, and as soon as you stop believing it, it can't make you believe something anymore. And I mean, it's a long and slow process, don't get me wrong. It doesn't just happen, well, it didn't for me, it might for somebody else. It didn't happen overnight. I did really have to work through it, everything. And, getting to the end of it and seeing what it actually was. But yeah, I couldn't see it at all until there was enough space in me that, for it to shine through, really. Before that, it was just too much of a jumble. I mean, I didn't even know who I was, which voice was mine, what emotion was mine. It was just all boof, 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 constantly. And but going in there and sorting it out bit by bit by bit, it just diffuses it. It's like Johnny, he goes through everything that you have, that you've kept hold of since you were a child. It knows everything you know. It knows exactly how to rile you up. It knows how to take any situation and fuel it, because that is what it needs. Because without the fuel, which is the fight or flight chemicals that are released in you, it actually has no legs. It cannot be if it's not being fueled by those chemicals. It has no place in you if you're not activating it. Now, I appreciate that then you think, well, I won't activate it. How do I not activate it? Look at it is the answer. The only way to deactivate it is to look it right in the eye and say, I see you. It's kind of like, up until this happened to me, it would take my past and my emotions, it would ball them up and it would throw them at me. And I was going, oh God, get off, love and light, please come to me. And what happened once I had that moment of it switching was whatever it threw at me, I caught it. I caught it in my hands, and however uncomfortable it felt, as it went through me, it's like you then open it up and you look at it. And it does feel uncomfortable when you're in it, but you're always the part that's holding it as well. And so no matter how uncomfortable it is, you want to see it because you just want to know. You get to a point where you just want to know. And of course, every time it throws one at you and you catch it, it's got one less to throw. And so gradually over time, it runs out of balls to throw. It's like it throws bombs, and instead of you carrying and hiding from the bomb, you take the bomb and you defuse it, and then you put it to one side. And gradually it runs out of bombs. So yeah, I got to that point, working that all through, feeling really, really, really brilliant. And I wasn't not feeling brilliant anyway, because since the switch moment happened, and even though I've been through all the stuff I've been through and sorted it all out, from that point onwards, suffering had ended, because it was just exploration. And so, but there are different degrees of freedom, I realise, So what happened after that was he kind of, that sort of settled down, I worked it through to the point that I understood it and how it worked. I put scenarios on things, sort of, because some of it is kind of, some of the stuff that you gain when you do this is actually not translatable into human words. And so you try, it's like you hear the most amazing music played on the most spectacular instruments you've never heard, and then you try and run it through the mind to make sense of it, and it's like you've got a stick with an elastic band and you're going pang, pang, pang on it, because the notes from there just aren't here. So it takes a bit of working through. But so I worked that out. And then I was kind of feeling really, really contented and thinking, wow, I've sorted this. So now I know that I'm God, absolutely, and that God is there listening to me and that I can talk to. Because I started to talk to this part, the God part, and realised that it was answering me, which I've done before, but because there wasn't the clarity there, I couldn't quite hear it properly. But as it was talking to me, everything it said was absolutely spot on. But I realised it sounded just like me. And I think it kind of feels like it's me talking to me. But that felt a bit anticlimactical. But I kind of worked with that, talking to it and chatting to it, and feeling like, so this is like the God energy that's in me. I'm me in the middle, I'm this little bit here. There's the God energy, the bad energy. I sorted out the bad. So now I can just connect with the good, and the two of us, like two best friends, can go around through life. And, what more could I possibly ask for? So it's feeling really, really great. So I thought of this scenario where it's like we have a house and Johnny Big Bollocks, he's in the basement and he fuels all the emotions that live in all the rooms. You live in one room and all the other emotions live in other rooms. And God, he's got a place up in the attic. Now, you're living in this house and it's not much fun because Johnny Big Bollocks, he fuels everybody up all the time. You get pulled into all the drama. You're just trying to have your life, but you can't because he's throwing stuff at you constantly. And you also, oh God, I've got to get up those stairs, And it felt like I eventually had. I'd got up the stairs and I was sat at the foot of God. And we were in it together. So we were sort of chatting. And I said, this is brilliant. I'm really, I'm really, really happy and it's all worked out really well. And it doesn't feel like there's anything else to go. It feels like that this is it, that we've made it and there's nothing else. So I said to this part, is that right? Am I right that there's nothing left to go? And it looked at me and answered and said, you. I said, what? Like, you have to go. I can't go. I'm the doer. I'm the one that does all of this. I'm doing this, all of it. I can't go. How can I go? But I kind of knew that it was right. But I couldn't get my head around it at all. I kept coming up with scenarios, and I would go back to this part and say, so, and I'd say the scenario, get to the end, and it'd go, nearly, but not quite. And I'd go and try again. I'd go, all right, go off. And I think, I actually made my eyes water one evening. I was thinking so hard. It was like when you try and read quantum physics. I just couldn't fathom it. And then it gave me a scenario. In the end, it said, okay, and watch this. And then I could see my town that I created out in front of me, and it was all beautiful, and everyone was there, happy. I knew Johnny Big Bollocks was defeated. I didn't see him actually, but I knew that he was. And I was sat on this step, at the bottom of the step, looking out over it all, just thinking, oh, brilliant, this is it. And then I heard this voice say, come home. And it was like coming from behind me. And so I looked behind, and there was steps up, like big stone steps, going up to this sort of building at the top, which was like big stone, slabbed, very sort of like a Greek-looking building. Not that that's relevant, but I went up the steps, but as I was going up them, I kind of knew that once I got there and I went in and I saw what was telling me to come home, that I wasn't going to be anymore. And that was scary because I didn't know what was going to happen to me. Because I'm thinking, well, I am this, I am the doer of all of this. So if I go, is Guy going to come out and there's just going to be this sort of empty shell sat there that doesn't even know how to communicate? Does this mean if I really want ultimate freedom, does that mean I'm going to end up in some kind of institution, like one of these sort of empty people? But I decided that I could not know. I had to know. I've come this far. I thought I can't turn around now and go, actually, I don't want to know. I had to. So I went in and I didn't look to start with. I was looking down at my feet. And I walked up, shut the door behind me, turned around, walked up, because I knew that it was in front of me. And I just slowly looked up. And what I saw just blew my mind, because it was me. And I went, hello! And this part that had just come up the steps was like, what the actual fuck? She was furious. I was furious. I couldn't believe it. It was this part of me that was just, knew everything, was just me. And I realised that I wasn't me, she was me. Very confusing. And I was really, really cross. In a kind of, I felt really let down. Like, it was just a big joke. But this part of me that is me as I am now, thought it was hilarious. She was just laughing, and in that way that it felt like my very best friend in the whole world had played the biggest joke on me that anyone ever played. It was quite a funny joke, if I looked at it in the right way, but it was also really annoying, because I'd been through so much shit, and all the time there's this part going, oh, I'm all right, it's all fine, oh, you're home. It was like that. It was like, well, you're home now, well done, you've done it. And this part of me that had come up the steps was like, what the hell? You've left me on my own for 48 years, and I've been doing this all on my own, and you've just been here like, ooh. It was just like, God. And she started to answer the part that is now me. It was saying, I wasn't with you. There was never a moment that I wasn't there with you. I had your back the whole way. I am the one that pulled you out of everything. I'm the one that when you felt you couldn't go on, helped you to go on. I'm the one that reassured you when you felt bad, that would say, come on, come on. And I realised that she, me now, was actually, it's confusing, for the part of me that has been doing it all. I've been the doer of all of this. I've been the seeker. And the point of the game and the seeking is to find your way back to the whole. And she is the whole. She is the part that knows everything and knows what she is. And this part of me was trying to get to her. And when I got there, I was quite bloody cross that she hadn't been supported. But then realising that obviously she had. But because of the weight of Johnny Big Bollocks, I hadn't been able to hear her. But of course, over the last couple of years, I've been listening to her more and more and more and more. But I was completely identified with the seeking side. But then when I realised what I realised that's what I was. There was no kind of... it's really hard to explain. I knew I was that too. It's like, it's very strange. So eventually we stood there chatting, and I'm saying to her, you left me on my own, and she's saying, look, you said, this is me saying this, you said, I'll do the emotions this time, I don't mind, I'll go off and do it, and you did it, and you're back, and you've done a really good job, because you found your way back home. And I realised that was true, that in the whole, I had wanted to do this part, the human bit, the emotions, the life, that this part had been had. And it was a gradual understanding and coming together. But it took about 3 days. As that conversation progressed, I suddenly, the part of me that's me now, thought it was all hilarious. But the one that came up the steps, she got the joke, and a laugh. Well, it was just like the biggest joke in the universe had been played out, and I was the butt of the joke. But I got the joke, and that happened about 10 o'clock, and I stayed up till 4 o'clock in the morning, so I couldn't go to bed. I was just in shock, and went between being cross and hysterics, and feeling rejected, and all sorts of things coming up. And the next day I woke up, felt fantastic, felt in the same mood, woke up, remembered again, and started to laugh again. And I went to work, I had to massage some Russian people, and I kept bursting out laughing because it kept hitting me again, and I kept doing the thing. I had to keep going, sorry about that. And I came home, and I was going to make a video then because I was feeling quite I've got to share this because it's amazing. And I sat down to do it, and I was on my own. God, I was in England, I was on my own at home. And this feeling of it was as if that part inside of me just suddenly collapsed down. It was like she just took a breath and went, oh my God, it's over. I don't have to do it anymore. And with that realising, it was as if she just lost all ability to function, but I was still her. I was going between the two. It was like I was both parts at the same time, but jumping backwards and forwards. So the part I am now, the part that's always been the reassuring part, I now realise, was just, saying it's fine. And I thinking, I've got to wash up, and I've got to cook something. I need something to eat, and it all just felt like too much. And I needed to have a shower, and I can't do any of it. I can't. What's the point of any of it? I'm nothing anyway. It was that sort of feeling. But the me of now was saying, it's okay, I will do it. I'll wash up. You don't have to do it. You just stay there. You just quietly stay here. And I'll wash up. I will shower you. I will do it all. I'll cook the food. And I realised she always did it anyway. But this part thought that she did it. And so that happened. We came upstairs, I had a shower, and it felt like I was being showered and I was showering someone. It was like when I was eating the food, I was feeding the food and eating the food. It was like a complete feeling of love from the greater part. And I realised then that, you know, I am just another one of my people. But I didn't realise. I thought I was the doer of it all, and this realising that I wasn't. And then she was angry again and went through all the. She felt rejected. It felt like she had done it all. She'd done all the hard work. She'd one that kept saying, "What now? What now? What now? What else is there? What else is there?" And this part was always just knew it all, and she felt rejected. She felt. At one point, she said, "But that means I'm not special." She felt that she was the achiever, and then it felt like that she wasn't. That it had all just been a bit of a joke. But gradually, she settled, and then we were in a. I realised I went into meditation at this point, and we were in the house that I'd been in when I spoke to anxiety. We were in the same lounge in armchairs in a cottage, and I realised it was in the village, and she understood that this is where she belonged. This was her house in the village, and that actually she had rescued everyone. It had all been her idea, and they were all here, and that she was the last one. And I sat with the two of us. It felt like the two of us, the me that knows and the her that was trying to understand and come to terms, and made her up a bed on the sofa, like my mum would have done when I was a child. And like crisp white sheets and a blanket and a puffed up pillow and a little table next to it with a bottle of Lucozade and some sweets and fruit and lollipops and colouring books, childish stuff, the stuff that I would have wanted when I was a kid. And she got into bed, and then she sort of settled down there, and the window was open and she could hear the birds. It was very, very real. And the me part of now was just reassuring her, and she kept just going over stuff, and then eventually just said, "I have done it, haven't I? I am home, aren't I?" And she got it then. She really actually got it, and the relief that then went through me, through her, through me, of, oh my God, I'm home. I'm actually home. It's over. It's over. I've done it. Was just wonderful. Just. It was so freeing. It's like, I don't have to do this anymore. I don't have to sit here for 8 hours at a time, 8 hours, and spend all my time thinking about how do I do it. It's over, you're home. And she got that. And so as we were sat there talking and feeling this complete feeling of love and acceptance, I heard a door open behind me, and my mum walked in. Well, the essence of my mum. I couldn't put a picture on her, as in she didn't look like she looked at any particular time in her life. It was just my mum. Like, she didn't have a particular hairstyle. She had all of them. It was like she was all the mums that had ever been, that I'd ever had. And then within her, the me that was on the sofa, the old me, was just this guttural scream of mummy. It was just mummy, and it came like from the very root of my soul, it felt like. And that is all she wanted, was mummy. That energy, she wanted that connection with that energy. And I went to her, and we was just lying on the floor. She had me in her arms, and she was just rocking me and just saying, "Mummy's here, it's all right, Mummy's here, Mummy's here." And I was just crying and crying, crying like I've never cried in my life. It was absolute guttural needing of that love of the mother. And it took me completely by surprise. I wasn't expecting it at all. But then, in retrospect, thinking backwards, when I was first going through the whole transformation thing, and the little ones were coming to me, I realised then that there had to be a first. And that first little child that first felt separate had to have been born somewhere. And then she was rejected from then on in. And I went several times, actually. I tried to find that little baby or little girl. I didn't know how old she was. And eventually one night I did. And what the visualisation was, I was in a cot and I was awake. I'd woken up because my feet hurt, my toes hurt, and I was looking down at my toes, and I had on a pink baby grow that had feet in it. And of course, from my mind now, I realised it was too short. I'd obviously just grown a bit too big for it, and so it was rubbing the skin on the end of my toes, my big toe especially, and they were sore. And this had woken me up. Or it might have been the noise, because I realised then that there was an almighty din going on outside of the bedroom door. And there were shapes moving. It was darkness and light moving in front of the door, and really, really loud. It was a party, I now realise. So this little baby's woken up. She's in pain because of her toes. I could see her trying to work out how to get this thing off, because she understood that it was inside, but she couldn't get it off. And then she started crying and calling. I don't think she was calling Mummy, because I don't think that she could speak at that point. So it was just crying in that sort of way, that getting more and more and more frantic of come, Mummy, come. And she was had the bath and was shaking them. And at one point it hit in the lip, and then there was the pain where the tooth had gone into the lip, and then eventually a lying down and sobbing in that way that babies do, children do, when they're just doing that thing, and just this sort of silence, and realising that she wasn't coming. And that was the moment that Johnny Big Bollocks was born, because the fear that Mummy wasn't coming and the disconnect from that energy felt real, and that brought into life. And that's what happens in all of us. At some point or other, the disconnect happens and the Johnny comes through. So once I realised this, going through this process of this, then the me that was now safely home, that had eventually realised that what it was the driving force behind it all was Mummy, went back to the little girl in the cot and took her out and took her to the house where the Mummy was. So the three of them are then together. The beginning was saved by the end, and the three of them are now in harmony. I mean, the whole thing with the mum played out over being with my mum, over a couple of hours of talking to her, just being with her. And we went outside, and she was showing me the vegetables and the tomatoes, and it was just my mum. She was just there, but she was the lovely mummy. She was the mummy that was funny and compassionate and kind and loving, and it wasn't the Johnny Big Bollocks mummy. It was the lovely God mummy. And I sort of drifted between the two, this part and that part, for a couple of days. Just sort of, sometimes I'd realise I'd slipped back into her, but as soon as I realised I could come back out. And then she had this feeling, because to start with, she was absolutely ecstatic that Mummy was there and that she was back with this loving Mummy energy. And but then after a couple of days, she started to feel like, well, what if this Mummy here is now acting like she's the nice Mummy, but how do I know that the drunken Mummy, the mean Mummy, she's not just going to walk in the room and that's what she is? So that's sort of played out a little bit. Well, what if that is it? What if the Mummy that I had is actually the Mummy? And then I saw her for the first time as a proper form, and she was slumped up against the wall of the lounge, drunk, and head forward, sort of head between her legs, sort of completely out of it. And I realised that I was seeing an image I'd seen in the past from reality. And I stood there and looked at her, and I thought, well, that's what she is. And I have to accept that that's what she is. She's still my mum. She has that in her too. And I have to just accept that. And I did. I accepted, okay, now I live here in this village with my drunken mother. okay, well, I can do that. So I went up to her. I thought I'll have to put her to bed, and got her by the shoulder and was tapping her like I'd done many times and was saying, Mum, 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 wake up. And her head came up and she looked at me, and this big beaming smile came across her face, and her eyes were bright and alive, and she just said, I'm only joking. It is over, I promise you it's over, that is not happening. And we laughed, and yeah, that was that really. So it sort of bedded in. It just bedded in that I was now this, and it's like that part was just moving away from me. It still feels unbelievable that I could have identified myself as that all this time, only to find that that isn't who I am. It's absolutely mind-boggling. So yeah, that's sort of. But I was feeling sort of a bit, feeling strange because I don't know who I am really. And then I noticed when she was gone that there was also still a commentator that I hadn't really been noticing before. How I went to pick up my cup of tea and this voice said, careful, it's hot. And I said, I know, because I've drunk all the drinks. In all the years that we've been having hot drinks, I've drunk them all. I know how the mouth works. I know that if I pick it up and it's hot, that I don't drink it now. And this part said, yeah, you do, don't you? And then we spent a couple of days with her realising that she could actually step back, that she didn't have to commentate on everything all the time. And it came to me like, it's as if this whole time I've been the driver of the car, doing it all, driving it perfectly well, know where all of the bits are, what I need to move. And she's been sat next to me with like a children's stick-on steering wheel, and she's been thinking that she's doing all the driving. And she's, watch out for that, as if she really was helping me. But she realised, once we started to look at this, she wasn't actually, because she used to, but she doesn't need to anymore. And so every time she commented on something, I pointed out to her that I knew how to do it, kindly, because it does feel loving. You know, I would just say, I know, you know I know. And she'd say, yeah, I do. God, yeah, I do know you know. I don't have to, do I? It was like, oh my God, I don't have to do this anymore, do I? And then I saw her, she was lying on the beach in my town, doing like snow angels in the sand, laughing and just free, going, oh my God, I don't have to do it. And again, that happened over a period of a couple of days where drifting in and out of her, realising she was there, realising that I was seeing her, then I wasn't. Really most peculiar. And not knowing who I am. That's the weird thing, is because when these parts of you drop away, you don't know what's left. You go, well, what's here now then? What's in here now? Really, really odd. I've just lost my train of thought. I realised with her that she's the inner critic, and she's been there all the way through. But now she hasn't been being fueled by Johnny Big Bollocks' his negativity. She's actually turned into just a helper. It's like she was just, mind that, or, the other night I was sat and I had one of my legs underneath me, and when I moved because I'd gone dead, and she was saying, well, if you sit like that, if you sit on your leg, it will go dead. I was thinking, yeah, I know. And every time that she'd do something, it would be, oh yeah, sorry, yeah. But I realised that she is the one that she had actually been there the whole time. But she was the one that was brutally unkind, because she was fueled by Johnny. She was the one that would always tell me that I hadn't cleaned my teeth properly, that would always criticise me for everything that I did, because she had his fuel behind her. She was being fueled by the fight or flight chemicals. Oh, just hit the microphone. And but gradually as they had stopped, she'd moved into the better feeling chemicals, but she was still there because that's what she did. That was what her job was, and she didn't know she could stop doing it. She didn't realise, and I didn't realise. So even though it wasn't hostile anymore, I realised it was unnecessary, and so did she. And so yeah, she sort of bedded down. But the funny thing about that one was that I kind of thought, well, she'll go into the village, she'll go into the town. But then when I looked, it didn't seem to be. I couldn't put her in a house. There wasn't a house for her. And I said to her, you know, you don't have to be there. And she would say, no, I know I don't have to be there. And I was able to be her at the same time and realise that she didn't need to be here anymore. And so she said, I don't want to go into the village. I don't think it's necessary. I'm just going to go home. And you know, I'm not needed here anymore, and that's not for me. So I'm just going to go home to where we came from. And I don't know where that is, but she's gone there. So she's gone. So that's fine. That's yeah, it's brilliant. So now, who knows if there's anything else? I've got no idea, because I've given up that point where you think, well, there can't be anything else. This is it. Because who knows? I mean, this point that's talking to you now, next week I might be saying, well, you know, I was talking to you last week, they want me. I don't know. I also realised something strange, which was a bit disconcerting actually, was that the girl that was the seeker, she was actually the one that did the videos and was the one that was wanting to do all of this stuff. Because that was her drive, was to find her way back home. And so when I sat down to do a video, I didn't know how to do it because she did it. And that was really confusing. And there was other things as well that she's responsible for, or had been, and she's not now. So now I've got to do them. And that I felt a bit rejected, a bit on my own. It's like, oh God, I've got to do it all now. There's nobody to do any of it for me. I asked her, because I couldn't do the video, I sat down to try and do it, and I couldn't work out how to do it. I couldn't get my thoughts in any sort of order. I realise now that I was in the eye of the storm, so there wasn't really any way that I could get my thoughts in order. But I went to her and said, can you come and do the video? But it felt like she was a long, long, long way away, and not in the least bit interested in anything that I was doing. She was just there with Mum, you know, and I'm saying, could you come back and do the videos for me? And she said, no, I can't. I said, well, I can't do it. She said, you can. She said, but I can't because you have out-thought me. Your thoughts are now bigger than I am. And so I cannot speak for you because I cannot comprehend your thoughts. So I would always be doing you a misservice because I don't have the capacity to hold the thoughts that you have, which is weird, but fine. So yeah, that's kind of where I am at the moment. I don't know if I've left anything out or not. I hope not. I hope it's interesting. I'd like to say keep on emailing me, and what I've realised over the last couple of weeks is that Skype is the way forward. I've had lots of emails, and it's really quite hard when someone sends you a long email with lots of stuff in it to sit and reply to it point by point, when you think, well, it'd be so much easier if we could just have a conversation, because nothing's missed or lost in translation. And so I started to talk to people on Skype, and I've had some wonderful chats with people, and I've met some brilliant people, and I realise that, you know, I can help them and they're helping me too. And it's just so rewarding when you're talking to somebody and they've got a question, you answer it and you see the light go on and they get that little bit. And that's what I want to do. I want to help people to get the little bits until eventually you're up and running and you can run with it yourself. And then I want to hear how you get on. It feels like being free is the most amazing thing that you can have. And I've got that now. And so I just want to help other people get it too, because it's just too good to keep to yourself. And so, yeah, get in touch. There's an email address underneath it. Well, I'll type one underneath this. And send me an email, and then we'll Skype. And, yeah. So speak to you soon, hopefully. And I hope you've enjoyed this and I've not been just rambling, because I always think that I have been. But then people seem to be being quite receptive to my ramblings. So, yeah, good. It's all good. So, yeah, nice to speak to you, and I'll speak to you again. Bye.